Good evening and thank you for joining us on The Big Story. My name is Sharon Mumanyi. Now tonight, you will have to be very careful when going about your business on social media starting today. It is now illegal to publish or distribute false information, and those found culpable will be liable to a fine of 5 million shillings or a 2-year jail term. And if you often share your password, please stop, or you could end up in jail for a long time. These and other crimes are outlined in the Misuse of Computer and Cybercrimes Bill that was signed into law by President Uhuru Kenyatta today. This new controversial law has elicited storm online, the very place it seeks to restore order. Coincidentally, the bill was being canvassed on the floor of the National Assembly at a time when reports emerged that male members were receiving nude pictures from an unidentified lady, while others were being bullied by fraudsters. Those comments on the floor of the House earlier in the year kickstart the big story tonight.
Members of IEBC, and we published the results. If this bill was law, we would all be serving a jail term of 5 years with having been fined 5 million shillings. And therefore, being a person who will want to access such a server in future in the unlikely event that the IEBC unlawfully refuses or such other entity, I would definitely not want to support such a bill.
False publications, Madam Speaker, and I think this is one thing that almost every member of parliament suffers from. Immediately you are elected, the next thing you see is a publication about yourself. They will fish, write about things that really are very painful. They don't care whether you have small children who read, and they really put a lot of things. And there are some gutter prices, and I'm hoping we'll be able to take care of them at this moment when we pass this bill, because a lot of false publication is done and hurts many families in this Republic of Kenya.
You saw yesterday members of parliament who came out strongly about people who've used messages, people who've been maligned through Facebook, and a lot that has been happening on the internet. So this thing will actually put to rest most of the fears and fraud that have been perpetrated through the computer and the internet.
Cybercrime is not about Facebook. Cybercrime is about us. It's about information, and information is power. So if you just pass this bill without going deeper into it, then all of us are in trouble. Because, you must give Kenyans freedom of speech. They want to say something, they want to speak, they want to criticize, you give them that platform. And that
Right, so there you have it. And for this conversation, I have with me in studio Dr. Bright Mawudor, who is the head of cybersecurity services at Internet Solutions of Kenya. And I also have Mercy Mutemi, who is an advocate on internet law. And a little bit later, blogger Robert Alai will also be joining us here in studio. But before we get into that, our lead reporter, Sophia Wanuna, is on standby with the CS for ICT, Joe Musheru, and now joins us live from his office here in Nairobi. Good evening to you, Sophia.
Good evening, Sharon. So the Computer Misuse and Cyberbullying Act now, assented by the President earlier this morning, we have seen the hefty fines and lengthy sentences for those found culpable. The ICTCS with me tonight, Joe Musheru. Thank you so much for making time for us. You are involved in the drafting of this and coming up with this law. Are you satisfied with the final product?
Yes, I am. We have a product that is going to help us, especially with not just the big four, but where we are headed up as a country.
Yeah.
The laws that we had before were actually drafted and set up before we had M-Pesa. So you can imagine all the changes that we've had, technology and people's ways of doing things. We didn't have something that's taken that into account. Now we do, which is going to make life easier for every Kenyan.
What has been the biggest concerns? Of course, we saw the outrage and the example in the House with the MPs and the scenarios they'd gone through. And we've seen cases of harassment, cyberbullying. But what for you was the most significant legislation in curbing and legislating this kind of space?
So the first thing is we need as a country to be able to develop. We need prosperity. We need to get our Vision 2030 done.
Right.
We've said as a country that technology is going to be at the base of everything we do. We are a digital nation. If that is the case and we don't have the right laws, people are taking a lot of advantage. So I would say the financial losses are significant. The terrorist activities are also significant. There's cyberbullying, especially of even our children. There's pornography. There's been many, many big things that have been happening, but they're not necessarily covered in the news. People have lost a lot of money, and now we have to make sure we stop these things. There is even people, as you know, who have been killed on social media. They even show you the accident, they show you all the things, and yet these people are real. You can imagine what it's like for their families to be seeing that on social media, and yet it is not true.
Yeah.
So fake news is also a big area that is a problem, and it's our hope that now with this process, because it's not just a one-off, this process is going to help us at least ensure we have a safe country to work in, and we're going to be able to use it also for growth and development.
Yeah. Fake news, that terminology, some have concern with it, being seen as clamping down on space that some have taken to expose whether it's graft or other issues that are developing in society. Is there room for misuse? Do you share that concern?
No, I don't see any concern. So the first thing is we started drafting this bill, and now which is an act, 2015. The AG's office, we got everybody involved. We went through, I think it's maybe 3-4 different public participation activities where we had academia, we had civil society, we had businesses, we had everybody involved. But if you look at the act, it sets laws. But we have the judges. They're the ones that actually, if, say, someone says this is fake news, it will be proven in the courts. So there's a process where you get the prosecutors, you get, the police, everybody involved to ensure that at the end, there's going to be justice. So I'm not worried that this can be misused because it goes to the courts.
Yeah.
So it's your view on how you feel about the courts.
Because the question has been asked, who decides what is fake and what is not? Because even the government in some instances has been accused of peddling misinformation.
As it is the judges. It is a law. We have a clear constitution. There's nothing unique and special about this. The only thing that it does is that now we have very clear rules and laws that people know. So if you are working in government and you go and give your password to somebody else who hacks the system and then is able to get money, you're culpable.
Yeah.
But most people did not realize that these are some of the things they need to watch. They know that you don't give away your PIN, but your password is also just as important if your employer has given you that and then you misuse. So if it's used for crime and other things, then you'll be responsible. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of education. We're going to make sure everybody is aware of what these laws mean, but it will help us to be cleverer and better in use of technology.
It introduces the criminal aspect when it comes to questions of defamation, and the concern on that has been raised last year. There was a matter before a judge, and he found that with defamation, the criminal element is not considered. It's a civil matter. What's your thought on that?
It still goes back to the same judges. So the laws are there. The judges are the ones who interpret. As I said, this was through public participation. It went through parliament. It's gone through everybody. And they felt that this is important. And therefore, if you look at the extortion that goes on, there are many interesting things that people do. Let me not give examples, but there are some videos of people who are told if you don't pay as X, these videos are going to be released, and they're released. Right. Really, some of these things are criminal. They do some of these things. They take pictures of people and use that to blackmail. Surely, we cannot allow many of these things to happen. So but the good thing is I'm not the one who's deciding. It is not the government. It is the judge. We have real judges who have been appointed to deal with this.
Okay. There's an area, I was speaking to one of the lawyers dealing with this, and she talked to me about real-time collection of traffic data. So that in other sections, yes, there's collection of data, you go to the court, you get an order and you're able to do it. But real-time collection does not require a court order, and that leaves gap and room for what would be called snooping by the government to simply go, we need information on Sophia, it's really urgent, must expedite this. Isn't that worrying?
So take a scenario, your child has been kidnapped. And you're trailing someone, you know where they are, you have the real-time data of where they are with this child of yours. Are you saying somebody doesn't get the opportunity to use that technology to find these people? you know, at the end of the day, once this has been used, this technology, this information has been used, you still go back to court. The person is still around in court. And if it is found that they should not have taken this information, there was no reason to go real time, then the judges will actually state that.
But there is danger of abuse, isn't there?
There's always danger of abuse of anything. You give a policeman a gun or you give anybody a gun, anybody can still misuse anything they're given. But in this instance, we have to balance. It is really critical that as technology is used, we cannot give it now to criminals and say we're always going to be behind in an analog system.
Yeah.
So the dangers are there, but the checks are with the courts. So there's a check system that ensures that if it was misused, then the courts will deal with it.
Yeah. So even those on WhatsApp, because it's computer misuse and cyberbullying, they should know they're not in the clear. WhatsApp is also part of what this law gets very clear and into detail about, isn't it, as well?
So it's not only WhatsApp, it's all applications, social media. So let's not pick one company.
Oh, sorry, yes.
so it's all technology, all apps, social or not, because they're used for many things. Today, your phone, initially, it was known for making calls. Now you're doing banking transactions, you're buying even land, you're renewing your driver's license, all on the same device. So all those things affect everybody's life, and therefore you must manage.
Yeah.
If you check, you know, we have, in the last 2 years, over 28 million incidents of cybercrime. Actually, on a daily basis, we have over 40,000, just to our cybercrime center at the Communications Authority. This is big. We escalate close to 11,000. So it tells you this is not a small problem.
Yeah.
It needs to be dealt with. In fact, you'll find that some of those maybe social media things that people seem to think are the biggest are only a small fraction of the things that people do. They'll hack into your system, they'll take money from your bank account, and then what? They'll steal your identity. And then you'll find Sophia is the one that went and wrote all manner of things. How are you going to deal with that? So we have to make sure we are educating people and that we're following the laws as it should be. At least there's the checks and balances.
All right. Thank you. Many thanks for making time for the big story. CS ICT Joe Musharu with us. Sharon, you have a great panel as well in studio, and I'm looking forward to the conversation and their insights on the same.
Many thanks, Sophia. I have quite the panel tonight. I have an advocate of internet law, Mercy Mutemi. I have Dr. Bright Maudor, who is a cybersecurity expert. So we all wait to hear and get deeper into this conversation. I also will, Robert Alai is also here, is a renowned blogger here in Kenya. So we shall get into that conversation briefly. But before we get into that, let's just highlight some of those areas, that this particular document highlights. And we can't really go into the whole of it because it's a 44-page document, but just some of the highlights that would capture your interest. Just taking a look at some of the punitive actions that would follow such. We have the intentional publishing of false publications and misleading or fictitious data and misinformation would attract a penalty of a fine not exceeding 5 million Kenya shillings or a 2-year jail term. We also have cyber stalking and cyberbullying, which would attract a penalty of 20 million Kenya shillings or a jail term of 10 years. Such really dire punishment that we have there, severe punishment that we have there. And we have seen this really eliciting passionate reactions on social media. And I just want to get right into this conversation with my panelists. And I want to start with you, Dr. Maudor, as a cyber security expert. How timely do you find this particular law in the cyber security and computer space in Kenya? All right, let's try to fix that microphone for Dr. Maudor. But even as we do that, let me engage Mercy Mutemi, who is an advocate of internet law. And Mercy, I just want to start with your reaction of this law. Do we have a sound law here? And what to you are some of the big wins that this law presents? What are some of the loopholes, in your opinion?
Oh, thank you. So, first of all, this law is timely. This is really the right time to have cyber law legislation in place, not because of anything, but now we are seeing more Kenyans getting into the online space. And the more online users we have, the more vices start to spring up. So first of all, I have to commend the ministry, the ICT ministry, for coming up with a bill. It is true they did engage the public throughout the process. However, just to note, public participation doesn't always mean that the public views are taken into account. Sometimes you can listen to the public and then throw out their views. So that sometimes also happened with this particular act. The big wins for me, number one, cyber harassment. So every day when you go to Facebook nowadays, there's always someone being unequal. That's what we call it now. We're saying, oh, so-and-so is not even a good person. Yeah. And then we use that as an excuse to expose their personal information online. So in essence, that's just cyberbullying. So the other day we witnessed the Ifikie Wazazi hashtag. Yes. So without knowing, what people were doing is sharing child pornographic material on Twitter. So again, I'm very happy about the cyber harassment clause. I'm very happy about the child pornography clause. Some things that have become of interest, such as cyber squatting, that's addressed in the act as well. Phishing is also an issue. I'm happy about those four. The loopholes for me, I see two major loopholes. Number one, fake news. Doesn't matter what we call it, Section 22, Section 23, that talk about false publication and publication of false information. That's just really talking about fake news. And the number one problem is really, if you're calling something fake, who is deciding what's real? So that's a really bad direction to take when it comes to the freedom of expression. And maybe in time we can delve into the constitutional issues posed by that issue. The other big loophole for me is the investigative procedures part, which is part 4 of the Act. So when we start onboarding ISPs to help the police officers in investigations, we have to be very, very careful, not only for the users themselves, but also for the ISPs. I see a scenario in the near future where people will be in uproar because they realize that this act gives ISPs, Safaricom, Airtel, Telcom, the power to hand over all the information to the police officers without transparency sometimes. So yeah, in a nutshell, for me, those fake news and the investigative procedures, those are going to be big problems that the court at some point will need to be involved in.
Right. And Dr. Maudora, I want to come back to you to get your reaction, especially from that cyber expert point of view, in terms of how timely is this for this industry, this particular law that we have now in place, and what are some of the gains that it brings to the industry?
Well, looking at the fact that the internet society has grown in Kenya for the past 5 years, we're looking at the fact that also that internet connectivity and details of things that are happening are really advancing. People are taking advantage of some of those things to be able to actually commit a lot of crime. Now, the cybercrime right now has become a big deal, and for the fact that somebody can easily use publicly available open source applications to actually abuse someone, to take advantage or even compromise the system, we're seeing that this bill is going to really help in trying to curb some of those things. A lot of banks are having, they lose a lot of money, as we see there from reports, various reports, and this bill is going to make sure that some of those crimes can actually be brought to light. Right. If you look at it right now, so many banks don't report any of the losses. Why? Because the fact they don't even know how the public is going to react to that. But I'm happy right now we can actually have some headway to make sure they can be brought to book.
Right.
Yeah.
And Alai, you're one of the most renowned bloggers in the country, and some say that this particular law would make bloggers an easy target. How does this law make you feel?
I think it's very unfortunate to have this law at this point of time. And you know, listening to the argument of Dr. Maudor and the lawyer here, I think this is the main challenge we have in this country, is that people are trying not to be very professional. People are not trying to be intellectual in analyzing this issue. A lawyer is analyzing a law like a layman in a market. This law is, let's look at the...
Expound on that, what do you mean?
Let's look at the substance of the law. The law is dealing, first, let's deal with the nudity. it says that if you send nudity between the two of you, whether you decided willingly to share the nude photos of yourselves, then you have committed a crime. What kind of law is that? You know, the freedom of expression is limited in Article 33 in certain situations: hatred, propaganda for war, incitement to violence, and, you know, ethnic hatred, you know, things like that. But why do you have another special law to deal with freedom of expression? Then the lawyers come and tell us that, you know, because we have the internet now, the law is very good. Let's look at the substance of the law. We have been wanting this law as internet professionals. Myself, I'm an internet practitioner. I'm a cybersecurity analyst. I'm trained in cyber forensics. So the problem here is that the substance, the articles, you know, the sections of the law, pornography. When you want to deal with pornography, we have Sexual Offences Act. And if you check on the law, the Sexual Offences Act and this special cyber crimes.
But it has no clause talking about how these people can be sexually harassed on the cyberspace, and this is what this law is trying to address.
You know, sexual harassment is sexual harassment wherever. So we want a special law to deal with one for matatu, one for cyberspace, one for marketplace, one for school. What kind of country are we going to have? So, you know, a law is a law, and it's going to deal with the crime, whether it was committed on the moon, as long as it's the country called Kenya.
All right.
Please.
And before I let the lawyer respond to you, because you've raised particular issues about the substance of this law, so according to you, do you think there was no vacuum for a law that would regulate what we see as cyber harassment, cyberbullying, pornography, child pornography, all these areas that have been canvassed by this law?
You know, like I said, we needed this law. We needed a law. We didn't need this particular law, which has been passed. And, you know, the unfortunate bit is that I worked with Musheru when he was at the Google, you know, which is a very big platform for us. And a company like Google would not even have their own staff agree to such a law. Because this law is going to allow, what this law is going to achieve for this country is that most of the people are going to use pseudonyms online. Most people are now not going. The people who are scared are now not going to use the internet. The people who are brave enough are going to use pseudonyms. The government is going to have challenges policing this law. Have we as a country give definitions on what cyberbullying is? Have we as a country given definitions on what cyberstalking is? This law even talks about cyber squatting, which should be a civil offense. You know, if you are going to say that if I squat on the brand of Robert Alai and I am not Robert Alai, that's Robert Alai's own onus to go to court and the judge to decide in a civil court.
All right. So we have to go on a break now, but I really would like Mercy, who is an internet advocate of internet law, to respond to some of the issues that you talk about in terms of substance of law. Just when we come back, very heated argument that this is, and we've seen it even on the online platforms. So let's just take a short break now, and we'll come back to talk about this. And clearly, evidently, there's a lot of awareness need, and we'll talk about that with Mercy and Dr. Maudor when we return from this short break. Stay with The Big Story.